Good evening and welcome to the spectacular event that will be the first round of the Can-Am 1971 Championship here at HSO tonight. And, in the booth with me I have Alberto Ibañez. Good evening, Alberto.
Good evening, Jonatan. Good evening, everybody. We're ready here for a new season of HSO racing,
which should be a lot of fun to watch. These cars are beasts and very difficult to drive if not driven correctly, but very rewarding when you get it right.
Yeah, that's right. Like anything that is difficult, when you get it absolutely right, it's very rewarding. And these things, like you said, these cars, but I'd like to say these things, because they were basically Formula Libre things, are absolutely incredible. Back in the days, the Can-Am series was well known and started getting a lot of attention because it was basically a free formula. People could almost come with anything they thought about could go fast and tear the tracks apart, because these things had sometimes even up to almost 9 liters of engine, and they had 700 and some more of horsepower. So you will be seeing a lot of black stripes in the tarmac today, and you will see many cars also flying in the air, because these guys that are driving there are certainly not holding anything.
Yeah, and of course the cars...
User joined your channel.
I think we're back live. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alberto. In accordance to the cars being shaped like they are.
The aerodynamics that you were noting, these cars back then in the 70s, they were basically still experimenting with aerodynamics. They knew that you could put a big wing right in the direction of travel and you would get a lot of downforce, but it also produced a lot of drag. So the natural thing to do what was, of course, put more power into it so that you could go as quick as always in the straights and then have all the extra grip in the corners. And when you have a Formula Libre, like, of course all this is a circle that is continuously bringing you into more speed, more power, and in the end, well, causing you to have such brutal cars.
Indeed, and on screen at the moment we can see one of the works McLarens, the McLaren M8 F, I think is the factory car.
Yes, it is. The F version is the latest one that was developed for McLaren for this year, for 1972. When they were still dominating. And I think that will be also the question here, because in this series, in this championship that we are starting, we see David Sauber, which is the creator of the 3D models, who is in the number 5 McLaren, and Scott Urick in the number 7. And the question, like I said, is if this is going to be very much as it was in real life, the Dave and Scott show, or if we're going to have a very competitive season. What do you think, Jonatan?
It's very difficult to say, because with the cars being so difficult to drive, the tiniest mistake will change the outcome of the race. But at the moment, at least, it seems like the McLarens are definitely the cars to have around here.
They certainly are going the quickest, but we have many very good drivers there in some also decent cars. You have there, well, Yves Placet, I think it is no introduction at all here. He's driving this beautiful Can-Am Ferrari, which is probably one of the best sounding machines in the field. And Yves is very well known for being a true maestro when it comes to handling cars that have little grip and lots of power. He already showed that in the 1937 Alfa Romeo, where he was quicker than the world's Mercedes and the world's Auto Union. And he's certainly doing the same thing here. He's bringing this Ferrari right now to second position. We also have Austin Ibañez, who has been visiting us frequently. He was here in the Kart 88 last year for some races, and well, we all know he's one of the aliens up there. He's very well known for being able to break several records in other sims he has been racing, like iRacing, and winning lots of races, and he's also a racer in real life. But we also have many of our veterans of the league here, like Gerard Rion, who is in the latest model of the Lola, the car that was driven in real life by Sir Jack Stewart. And many of our regulars that have become quite proficient in road racing, like Jensen Whitehead and Adam Hackman. Other very fast guys like Grant Riddle, Austin Johnson, or David Jump, they are in average cars, but it just means, in my opinion, that they will only be able to do somehow modest top laps, but shine actually in race conditions, because one thing is being a hot lapper and a very different one being a racer, Jonatan.
Oh, that's definitely true, and it will surely come to prove right here, because the fuel difference between a full tank and the qualifying tank, I'd assume they're running here, is many kilos. I believe they can have around 120 liters in the car, if I'm not mistaken, something around there, and that of course makes a huge difference in how the car handles and how it transitions over a whole race.
It especially does on the brakes, because these cars certainly have brakes that were back then not really completely able to stop them as everybody would have wished. But when you were, of course, in full tanks, then it was even worse.
I can
so
imagine that.
2 hours is going to be certainly hard.
This is also one of the tracks where you have very little opportunity to rest, because you have so many crests and bumps in the road and corners to go along with that.
Yeah, those changes in elevation are quite complicated, both because the car gets suddenly unloaded when it's jumping in the air, and also you can't ignore that, because you don't really know what is behind the crest when you're coming there very high speeds. So this is a track that certainly is going to let's see, very many accidents.
Yeah, one of the issues that people have been having is rollovers, which seems a little bit strange, but I don't know enough about the physics to...
I think that's down to the curves. If you watch carefully the podcast, also in the television, you can see that the curves here are quite exaggerated. Not to mention that I believe Mosport back then in 71 didn't really have big curves, if it had any at all. It's, well, the general scenario is, I think, well captured here in this representation of the track, which is quite old, comes from Grand Prix Legends. But I think there were no curves, and if anything, no such big curves, and those are really putting the cars on two wheels if people are stepping over them. So that's likely the reason that we have seen some rollovers.
Let's have a look. I do have something for us. I was given the... let's see, we have the track map, of course, of Mosport itself, which is a almost 4 kilometer track, or just under 2.5 miles. We'll be racing for 80 laps, which will equal about 316 kilometers, or 196.7 miles. And I'd say there's only one real passing opportunity, with it being the hairpin which we were looking at before we went to the track map.
Yes, with these cars it's going to be really hard to pass here, because one of the basic characteristics of these cars is understeer. I mean, with so much power, these cars are rigged for traction, and that means you want a very soft rear axle and as much traction as possible on the big rear tire. So this also means that you don't have the agility that you maybe sometimes would like to have to be able to place a car quickly in, for example, S's or any other suitable place to overtake. Therefore, as you say, the straight before the hairpin is likely the place where everything is going to happen here. Of course, barring any errors, driving errors that can be forced by pressure from the guy behind. I should say that in any case, Mosport is a beautiful track. It's very scenic. It's lovely, and Formula One also right here. But it just is a bit too small for cars when you get to these levels of power.
Indeed. And let's see, I'm just looking for a good camera angle to take us around the lap, but I think we'll ride on board with a roof cam here on Saber's car, as he's just heading out to the hairpin. And this is the only place you can really have a chance to rest a little bit. And with these cars, that means about 10 seconds maybe that you have to rest.
And you can still hear the wheel spin with the straight itself, because the car has so much power that it's making the wheel spin even at that speed in the straight.
Indeed, as it comes through the last corner to start a lap. So let's see, we head into the first corner, which is a right-hander, slightly cambered. A lot of room on the outside.
These very long corners, it's always hard to get them really right, because when you have one of those 90 degrees corners or a hairpin, well, you basically just throw the anchor as late as you dare, and once you're already about to enter the turn, you just throw the car in and get out of it, accelerating as quickly as possible. So the whole maneuver is really somehow straightforward. But in these long corners, it's very hard because the attitude of the car makes a lot. And whatever you do with your input in the controls is going to have a big effect. It's going to throw the car out of trajectory very easily. So, also because they are very quick, you can gain or lose a lot of time here if you are really good in this quick corner.
Very much so, and we could see Saber hits the curb a little bit and has a bit of a moment.
Yeah, you've seen like that. He by doing so, he entered too much to the inside in this turn, and while the braking was good, he was thrown to the outside and he lost there a lot of time.
Indeed, and we could see also, talking about the longer corners, that he had a bit of a moment both here in turn one, a lot of shaking from, a lot of twitching from the rear. Oh, as he has a...
That's what happens when you
get
too much of the car. He tried to avoid the other car in that trajectory, and that's a bit for it. And this also has highlighted something else, it must be said, of this track. That's how narrow it is.
Very much, very true. I think
it's going to be really hard to be overtaken here.
Yeah, it looks like it's at most 2.5 car widths of room on the track. Into the hairpin there's barely 1.5 by the looks of things.
Because and when you count that these cars are in an attitude while they are cornering because of the big slip angles, and that they are sliding out of the trajectory, well, you can see that there's not going to be a lot of room.
Indeed. As we can see there, Austin Ogonowski, I think it is, in the shadow there, having a bit of trouble negotiating a slower car in the S's. And that will surely also be a factor in this race, managing the traffic, because the cars are different in pace, and with the narrow track and the cars being a little bit on the difficult side to drive, if you read the traffic wrong, you can lose a lot of time, and even more than time if you're really unlucky.
User joined your channel.
Yeah, this is very much as when you're working at ovals. Just if you don't time yourself well with the traffic, then you're going to have a lot of trouble.
Indeed.
It's very dangerous in these cars.
We have been joined by a few more drivers as well while we've been chatting away. We have Scott Urick in here, we have Jason White just joined, and Michal Janak joined a little while ago as well. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to all.
Good evening. Jonathan, I forgot to mention earlier, I just wanted to ask if you could please give the green from the broadcast booth after we do the one lap, the pace lap.
Well, either me or Alberto.
If either of you could do that in the chat, that would be fantastic.
Yes, we'll put that in the chat. Okay. Once the leader is coming to the to the straight line after the last turn, if everybody is correctly lined up, yeah,
because I will be too far back to see the front of the field. So
what's the lap speed that you would like the field to do, more or less?
I'd like to keep it down to about 100 kph.
60 mph.
Yeah, well, between 60 and 80 miles an hour should be sufficient to try to keep things bunched. So,
okay,
cool. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
You're very much welcome.
Good luck.
Yep.
User disconnected from your channel.
Oh, we're already done with qualifying. I didn't even notice that while we were chatting away. So let's have a quick look. It looks like David Saber has taken pole in his McLaren. Not that surprising. Nils Placé putting in a good job with that Ferrari, which is also pretty quick. Austin Ogonowski in the shadow doing a good job. That's a quick but very nervous car to drive, from what I've heard. And other notable names in the top 10 is Yadrion, who was doing really well in the ground effects 1978 F1 series 2 years ago now, actually. Well, with this year, so yeah, but 2 years ago he did a good job in that series. Adam Hackman putting in a good job. He did the kart series last year, struggled a little bit early on, but has found his pace and consistency and is quick here as well. Of course, Grant Ridal, I'd say we'd expect to be up here. Scott Urick putting in a good job in the second McLaren, sitting 7th. David Junt, our 500-mile winner twice in the kart series this previous year, lines up 8th. Juha Boos putting in another good performance in 9th, and Raul Jareb in a very nice 10th position. He's definitely on pace here by the looks of things. And we also have a few new and old new drivers, if that makes sense. We have Jukka Matanen, who did the USAC 1973 series 2 years ago, but more or less had a sabbatical year in 2017. He did the odd race, but not that many. And we have the newcomers of Gabriel Sturr and Christian Dauger putting in some, by the looks of things, neat performances. Sky Willis, our resident Welsh contingent, is also racing here. She did the early season in the 1991 F1 series, but then had to pull out. And Timo Vermeersch is back as well. He did the F1 1978 series, a few races there before he was forced to retire from the season. And yeah, but let's also have a look, because we have a point structure in this championship that looks like this. where first place take 20 points, and then it's 5 points difference to second with 15. Then it's 12, 10, 8, and then 6th to 10th have 6, 4, 3, 2 and 1 points. So very generous giving out of points compared to, for example, F1 back in the day, where I believe only the top 6 scored points, which is nice to see and should open up for some more interesting championship fights, hopefully. We of course saw one of the HSO's closest championship being fought out last year in the Kart 1988 series, where coming into the final race of the season there were 6 points between first and third. And while we're riding on board with Scott Ogonowski and the Shadow, looking back from his car, where there seemed to be some kind of issue, if only slight. But yeah.
And we're already seeing that with the full tank, cars are completely loaded and people are doing the warm-up for the race. The order that we saw before in the hot laps is starting to change. Like we said, hot lapping is one thing, racing is another.
Definitely, but one I see being up there, who was also in second during qualifying, is Yves Placé, who's always a good racer, and with qualifying second, I'd expect him to be up there fighting for the win tonight. We could also see that the lap times are a little bit... Oh, and there comes Dana Schurer. Again, another good racer, putting in the quickest lap of the warm-up session. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, but we can see that the lap times is, at least for the fastest, who as Yves just blasts in a 15, but generally it's about 1.5 to 2.5 second difference with a full tank of fuel, by the looks of things. And it would seem, yeah, I'll have another quick look at the engine volume. Seems to be a little bit low still. But feel free to let me know in the chat in the broadcast in case it becomes too low or too high.
Whose car is that?
That is Dana Schuro's autocast car or autocoast car. The only car in the mod which I could drive to some kind of consistency when I was trying the mod out.
Certainly a very personal car. One that was already very different to the others back then, and I guess Richard Wills got it also like that in the mod.
Indeed.
Yes, that car being called the TI-22 was made entirely out of titanium, except for the engine.
Yeah, that's a chemical symbol for titanium. So I think that here Jonatan can tell us a lot more about that.
I'd rather not, it's been a while.
Actually?
What's that?
Metals.
Yeah, I'm a graduate of bachelor in materials engineering, specializing in metals, so I should know a little bit about it. But it's been a while, so I'd rather read up on it before I comment on the good or bad sides of making a car entirely out of titanium.
Okay,
but it would definitely be very rigid, that's for sure. And I'd say a little bit lighter than your ordinary iron based car.
Well, I once had a titanium wristwatch. I got it as a present, and it certainly was incredibly light, much lighter than anything that you can see. Though it broke miserably as any of the others, I must say.
Well, gentlemen, I'll leave you now and we'll get ready for the race. You guys have great fun in the booth.
Yes, I think we'll be able to have that. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank
We
you,
sure
sir.
have lots of fun during this race.
Oh,
Watching
yes.
people with these cars is incredible. It's almost like the Cirque du Soleil. On wheels.
Indeed.
That is a good comparison.
So, he's got the quickest time, Scott.
Looks like it's
Let's see what
Placé.
McLaren boys can do about it in the race.
Yeah.
So we're about to start.
Just waiting a few moments longer. For the session and track to load up for the race. And that was a perfect time for a quick sip of water. But as we said after qualifying, David Saber will line up first on the grid. We're just waiting for the last few cars to join the grid. There we have the beautiful grid of, I believe we have just over 30 cars on track this evening, which will be a fantastic sight to behold. But we have the number 5 McLaren of David Saber on pole position. Yves Placé lines up second in the Ferrari, and Austin Ogonowski lines up third with the Shadow. Then we have Gerard Rion in the newest Lola, number 1. And then it's Jason Whited, followed by Adam Hackman, Grant Riddle, Scott Urick, David Junt, Juha Bos, and Raoul Jerev rounds out the top 10, followed by Steve Parker, in should be in 11th, I thought, but you have Bors 11th, Steve. Yeah, you have Bors 11th, Steve Parker, I believe 12th, 13th for Mikael Drexler, 14th for Ray Riddell, 15th for Dana Schurer, 16th for David Jakes, driving one of the BRMs, a late joinee of the race because Jakob Fredriksson had to pull out at the last minute. And Jukka Martanen lines up 17th, with 18th being Martin Lassina, 19th Jan Titz, 20th Felipe Enrique, 21st Peter Labatt, 22nd Brian Janik, 23rd for Matthias Weber, 24th Jason White, 25th Gabriel Sturr, 26th for Simon Wattman, 27th for Christian Dauger, 28th for Marassi, 29th Chacon, 29th Willis, 30th for Vermeersch, and last on the grid is Jan Kowalski, who I believe disconnected from the qualifying session. But here we go, the race is about to get underway. And the race is green, and the race is underway, and it looks like David Saber has held on to the lead going into turn 1. He has indeed. Let's see, it looks like the top 10 at least gets through turn 1, okay. Looks like everyone is going to get through okay here. Very, sort of, almost a tame start. But everyone has gotten underway. No, doesn't look like there's any major shake-ups except Scott Urick.
He's now rejoining.
Yeah, he went off down the hill there.
So we have now Yves right behind Dave. Austin Ogonowski is predicted is still holding there. There are Rion and then Jason White.
And my apologies, Scott Urick braked very late into the hairpin, almost made contact with the car in front. Oh, we have side by side up ahead Austin Ogonowski and Gerard Rion. And I think Rion made up a place there.
Making a good show with the 917.
Indeed, moving up to third right here.
Seems like David is able to already make some difference there, break away from the rest. But I would say that Yves is not willing to push right now at the maximum Dave, and he's trying to wait a bit what happens. Very difficult this long corner. Everybody going for the outside, braking, losing speed, and then trying to stick it to the inside without the car sliding too much so that they have a good exit. And I would say everybody's being really careful at this beginning of the season.
I don't think we've had any.
We have the 32 cars there.
I don't think we've had anyone off majorly. We had Scott off in the grass, but I don't think he made contact with anything except the grass. So
no major accidents now, which is always a good sign. And in general, the field is quite spread. Everybody's giving.
And we have a big lock up here. Number 12. I think he'll make the wall as well. He does.
That's Raul Gerard?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it is.
Something broken in his car. He's going very slow now.
Well, he just rejoined, so he may just be gathering up his thoughts a little bit. But let's have a look at that. See what was going on. See, he came over the crest. Looks like he may have been a bit upset. The car may have been a bit upset with the crest right there, and that's what put him off. But looks like he's back up to speed now, at least.
So Grant Rindal is starting to lose his patience. Not that he didn't have much to begin with, but he's starting to put some pressure on Jason White. We've already seen in last year in Card 88 what a gifted driver Grant Rindal is. He absolutely pushed the car to the very limit. And I think he's going to make a very good show with this 917 Porsche.
Should definitely be possible for him. We could definitely see that he was.
He is a very spirited, and I can see that he is at the moment pacing himself. He knows that it's much better to reserve yourself for a little later in the race, and he's not trying to put a lot of pressure on Gerard Bouillon, merely following. And David Saber has already made a difference of 2 seconds with Gerard Bouillon, and 5 seconds already. With Yves, and 5 seconds already with Gerard Bouillon. So at least for now, and this track, the McLaren is being as dominant as in real life. Meanwhile, we have David Jacks also trying there to gain some position, and Michael Wechsler, who has Ray Riddle in front of him. They are now approaching a bit, now that everybody is on warm tires. I think that the hostilities are about to commence.
Oh, and we have a rollover for Drexler. No! Well, looks like he'll be able to get going once again. Although he will have to wait quite a bit here. There's a big line of cars. Now it's free for him to try and rejoin. And yet again he has to reverse and try to get going again. Oh, what a costly mistake for him.
Because he has dropped the position and he's not behind David.
That's very unfortunate for Mikkel. Let's get back up.
Adam Hackman and Steve Parker are rounding up a very meritorious top 10 with their cars. And Scott Urick is in the 10th position and now getting back quickly, catching Steve Parker.
Now let's ride on board with him for a little bit and listen to that beautiful Chevrolet engine.
Certainly intimidating, the sound of this picture. There was only one thing that was going to be capable of beating them, and that was two turbos on a 917 12-cylinder engine, which is what happened 10 years later when Penske entered the equation with Porsche.
Indeed. Ooh, Scott had a big twitch there, locked up the rears.
Well, I don't know to what extent that is having a moment or something like that, because I remember an interview with Kevin Schwantz some years ago in the Spanish television. The Spanish commentator was asking Kevin, how do you do that incredible thing that you go into the corner and slide completely, come out with one wheel in the air? How do you do that? And Kevin Schwantz just looked at the guy and said, I don't do nothing of that at all. The bike does that, and I just hope for my life. So, with the Can-Am cars, I think it's a bit like more or less the same thing. And they are just pushing the cars, and the cars are doing all that, and the drivers are just sometimes simply wild-eyed passengers.
I suppose that's a very viable point, as we can see up ahead of Scott. Oh, Scott has a bit. Oh, he has a moment just like Mikael. He won't. Oh, he may lose quite a bit of time. What I was saying up ahead was that it looked like Steve Parker was closing up on Adam Hackman. That's again unfortunate for Scott, but he's got going again. I think he's 15th or 16th.
We have Filippo Marazzi in the pits now. Not sure what the reason is, because this car shouldn't need any pit stop, neither for tires or for fuel.
Well, he may have had a small off and maybe bent the suspension a little bit.
David Saber
and we have
already 8 seconds on Brazilian.
We have a beautiful fight here between Jan Titz and Peter Labatt. Labatt just about nudged the grass a little bit and it slid wide, and that allowed Jan Titz to go through.
Two very high quality persons have been champions here at the past F1 races, and that have very good car control to our regulars. That are not higher just because they didn't get any better cars, but well, we all know how difficult it has been this start of the season with so many drivers that deserve a chance in this series.
Indeed, and we have just behind them, 2 places behind those guys, we have Gabriel Sturr having a very good opening foray into HSO. 8 laps in, is still in 22nd. I thought he was in the top 20, but still 22nd is no mean feat.
Yes, we have 2 debutants this year. That's Gabriel Sturr and Christian Labatt. I hope I pronounced it right, because that's not my mother tongue exactly. He's now last, and he's on the outside, making room for other cars to pass. But well, certainly not the easiest debut to have.
No, it's neither the easiest cars to get your first foray into HSO in, nor the easiest track.
Oh, Jan Kowalski has had an accident, he's left.
Oh wow,
What happened to him?
and Timo Vermeersch is out as well.
We're looking at Kowalski now.
Oh, looks like it'll be into the last S's.
No, he quit directly. Kowalski, no accident. Seems maybe a disco.
Well, that's really unfortunate.
So now Jonatan has joined the fight between Labatt and Fitz.
Oh, and his Placers dropped to 2nd. Adrian is up into 2nd and Placer down to 3rd.
That's very typical of Gerard Rion. We've seen that many times. He's a great driver. He's very, very patient, and he's always rewarded with better finishes thanks to that patience. We already saw that when he was driving in Formula 178. Other drivers made... David Saber? What happened with David Saber? He's low now.
Oh, he's off onto the grass again. He's going to drop to 5th. Let's see if we can find out what happened there. Oh, he had a spit. He had a. Oh, he was putting on to lap Bruno Chacon and read the traffic a little bit wrong and had a half spin down onto the grass here. And he had to reverse and then get going again.
Yeah, like we said, one thing is not lapping and the other is engaging with the traffic. So, about Gerard Rion, as I was saying, Gerard was doing bad starts when he had the Lotus 78 in the championship that we did. And he always went from less to more in his races. He was always much quicker towards the end. And this is probably also the case here. Once he's really comfortable with the car, he's really sliding it there.
Yeah, and that...
Under the pressure from each Placer. Well, Austin is there with black car waiting to see what happens. Not really willing to get in the heat of the battle, but just waiting to see if he can reap some benefits from it.
Oh, he has a spin! Oh no, he got hit as well! No! No, no, no!
Ah, that's very unfortunate. I think I don't know if he lost the wheel. Yes, he's three-wheeling.
Oh no!
Nah, they were too close together. Not much room for this kind of things here.
So that's Rio, possibly, no, it looks like he's going again. But Austin Ogonowski I think he will have gotten a little bit of damage there, lost a lot of time. And of course, as you said, Yves Placer got affected as well.
We'll see in the case if Ogonowski, I'm looking at his steering wheel seems to be in the straight line. So maybe he's starting to get much damage. Sometimes, because these cars have to work, so that means that probably they can still take some damage in the bodywork without much negative effect. We'll see.
I really hope for him that he can get that going again. Because that was really unfortunate.
Well, in any case, Austin ended behind Dana Sugar, who is one of the hardest rivals here if you want to cut. I can tell you that I've raced against her in the USAC series, and well, she has the ability of making the car twice as wide as it is normal. Very hard to fight against her, but very clean driver also. So David's on the lead again, but he's now slowing down.
It does look like Hughes Placer's car will be able to be repaired, and we have another one into the pits. That's Peter Labatt with a lot of damage to his car, and
So David Savarez now almost was side by side with, I think, that Ibañez, who is now pushing for the lead. And
Yes.
Jan Kowalski did not push. Suspension for Timo Vermeers. Someone's dropping here. It's Gerard stopping.
oh, nicely held, David. David Junt had to take a bit of avoiding action there. From Rion was into the pits, so he was coming out of the pits, struggling to get up to speed. And here we just saw a pass, I believe, for position between Park and Hackman. But Parker went up.
Now coming to Gerard Rion, who is going very slow. Ivanovsky has already passed Anachur. I'm not sure what is happening with Gerard Rion's car, but probably some damage from the accident before. David Saber instead is going very quick with the McLaren again. He probably didn't get the damage. And Grant Riddle is there on his tail, not able to stay with him or overtake, of course, but letting him know he's there in case he makes any errors.
And of course we've seen David make a mistake already this race, although not entirely his own fault.
It's certainly not going to be easy to do this full race without mistakes. Question is if the other drivers are there to capitalize on it.
It's definitely difficult to say, as Grant goes up the inside of Mikael in turn 2. And unfortunately the
right now are Jason Whited and Adam Hackman.
Unfortunately the six-way fight. Yeah. Unfortunately the six-way fight that we were about to have ended with that, but as you say, we have a close battle here. Looking at it from Ogonowski's car, I'd expect him to close in as they battle. And again we can see what looks like the car moving around a lot, as in front of us Whited is closing in.
So someone else has quit? Yes, that's Sky Willis. I saw someone go out in turn 1. It was a Sky Willis accident apparently.
Oh no. Oh, she was lapped by David Saber, and I believe that put her a bit wider than she usually goes, and that was enough for her to go off. That's really unfortunate. I was hoping for her to do well.
So Arion and Peter Labatt are both in the pits, probably making repairs. And Felipe Enrique just hit the wall. There's several drivers going slowly there. Adam Hackman, who is in 7, and he wasn't quite slow.
Oh, and Felipe Enrique has a big spin down the back straight. Oh, don't come back on track. Oh no! Oh no, another one. Dear me. And we have a car upside down as well. Oh no.
He hit in the middle of the straight at full speed. He hit the spinning car of Felipe Enrique. Right, and then that's, I think David Jackson was substituting for Jacob Dixon.
Oh no.
Yes, and he's out of the race too. Well,
Yes.
we already said it. These are very hard to drive cars.
Indeed. That's unfortunate. David was doing a great job with that BRM. Having only driven it, well, I know he's tested the car a bit, but jumping in straight into the race, he was doing a great job. That's very unfortunate, and also for Just Placé, who was trying to make his way back up the field after the repairs he had to make after the first accident. Yeah,
So it's David Saver, 5 seconds lead from Grant Riddle, then David Chance, Steve Parker and Austin Legonowski are the top 5 at the moment.
and all of them, by the looks of things, doing a very good job here. And rounding out the top 10 is Jason Whited,
User joined
trying to
your
put a
channel.
lap on Jason White, our admin for this series, who moves very neatly out of the way. Dana Schurer is 7th, with Hackman 8th, and 9th for Ray Riddell, and he has got Urick for close company. As we were joined by, I'd assume, Timo Vermeersch, who unfortunately also is out of the race from very early on. Let's have a look at this battle here brewing between Urick and Riddell. And of course Ray Riddell has gained a lot of places through all of this carnage that has been the last 8 or so laps.
We'll see if he is able to hold that McLaren behind him. Probably in the straight north, but
Definitely looks like Scott is a little bit quicker. We thought about going up the inside in turn 1 there.
yeah, that helps.
We can see that Ray is really good in some of the corners. He actually pulled away from Scott. And the McLaren in the longer corners.
McLaren is a bit of a mixed blessing because it's true, it's a very fast car, it has lots of downforce, but then again it has lots of power and it's always complicated to extract the maximum of it.
Indeed, because we can see here.
It doesn't have much better brakes than other cars, and yet it was much quicker.
Oh, that was close, but he made a pass stick.
Yeah, in the straights it's an absolute rocket. Like we said, this thing doesn't have a gas pedal, it has a fast forward button.
Quite so. It's one of those. Oh, you exit the hairpin, put the throttle down, and suddenly you're at the last corner. Within what feels like a second.
Nice black stripes behind you.
Indeed.
So David Jones, meanwhile, quietly, as is usually his style, has climbed up to 3rd place, and is sticking there to it.
When Brian Yannick has just been into the pits, leaving in the pits now, presumably for some repairs. Oh, and Jukka Martin and Peter Labatt is out of the race. Sorry, but Jukka Martin is out of the race. Let's see if we can quickly catch what happened. Maybe he and Brian Yannick got together somewhere.
Maybe there was a battle there between Jukka and Peter and Brian.
Doesn't seem like we'll get it on the replay, but fortunately Jukka is out of the race. As you said, David, again with being consistent, has climbed up the field. And by the looks of things, in a very secure 3rd place at the moment. That's unfortunate. Team has just written to me that his retirement on the opening lap was caused by partly the packed grid, but a car spun in front of him in turn 3 and he was unable to avoid it with the field being so close, and then he himself got hit in the rear and got turned over like Yves Placet was. And as he says himself, a racing incident, and it's unfortunate that it happens, but surely there will be better luck next time.
In the grass. Just made a small driving error. He lost a bit of time there, though he had a 12 seconds lead, so probably it's not going to make a big dent on it. Austin Ogonowski, meanwhile, is catching up with Steve Parker. Dealing with traffic meanwhile, Duha was making room for them. And they both have inside David guns, really that far away. So maybe this could develop into another 3-lap battle.
It's definitely possible, as they negotiate the hairpin once again. Austin got really close to Parker's rear wing that time, but lost a lot of time on the exit. Clearly Steve has to power down sorted very well.
It's obvious that Steve's McLaren has the legs in the straight. But if Austin is close enough, I would guess that he can hold well in the slipstream.
And holding very well in the turns. Looks like he can hold whatever line he decides to take without too much hassle. That being said, he lost a little bit of time that in 1 and 2 there. So it's very much a give and take of where you're quicker or slower.
Yes, it depends on the strength of each. When we are talking about Formula cars, it might be closer. But in the case of this one, the designer did very different. It took very different routes when designing. So some cars may be a rocket in the straight, others may be good at corner. There's also some hard battling between Raul Juret and Ray Riddle. Lots of flag stripes being left in the track there, while Raul is putting some pressure on Ray. But we're seeing that everybody is approaching really carefully the car in front. And I guess in the case of Stephen Austin, after what happened with Gerard Brion, they will be extra careful because they know how dearly it can cost you if someone spins in front.
Indeed, and of course I believe at least Austin is carrying a little bit of damage from that incident.
Austin isn't in a hurry, really. I mean, if he was much quicker than Steve, he knew he could catch up with the third position David Jant, but I think he will be playing a waiting game.
Well, it's still early.
This is a difficult. This is a rather hard thing to do with Steve Parker because he's not the guy to make errors, or at least not as usual as others.
Indeed, he's won a lot of races in many different series, and he did win the drivers' cup that we ran 2 or 3 years ago, I believe it was, where past champions partook and drove a series of different cars. I believe over 4, maybe 5 events, and Steve came out on top in that.
That both shine much in cars that have little bit and lots of power. They have the finesse and the ability to strike the most of them without ending in the side of the track with an accident. So David Sauer has had a very steady run now and has put 70 seconds. Even David Jan, who is now second qualified, since he was able to overtake Grant Riddle at some point.
I'd assume there are 2 lapped cars behind, so maybe Grant got held up a little bit during trying to lap one of them, and that's why.
Parker now who is teaming up with him, and of course Austin Ogonowski, who is like a shadow for Steve. Well, that's his car. There was no pudding.
No pun intended, but it was there. Oh, and we have a blown engine, I think. Smoke trailing from Steve Parker's car.
Ah, no, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, the engine is off. Oh, dearie me. Let's see if we can see. Oh, it happened very early on here. He was a little bit slow through the S's, at least Austin was quicker. Let's see, comes out of the...
When you see the car in front, it was the case with Steve, who was already seeing Brad Riddle's car. Oh, Austin Ogonowski overtaking in the grass. Probably Steve was getting a bit too eager with the gas because he was already seeing Brad Riddle in his crosshair. And of course these engines are a bit sensible at RPM. They are very much high tuned, very big pistons. So they are sensitive to that.
It's very unfortunate, but he had a good run going, so I'm sure we'll see him at least score top 5 finishes in this series moving forward. Because that was some impressive speed.
25 cars on the track.
Looks like we'll soon have a 3-way fight for second place. David Junt has been caught by Grant Riddle once again, and Austin is closing in ever so steadily here.
That's 3 quality drivers, so I would expect to see some nice battle between them.
I will definitely agree with you on that. Oh, we can see David Junt flying in a straight line. Compared to Grant, but then he loses time in the S's. So it seems to be back to the drawing board for Austin here if he ends up behind David, because he had a car quick in a straight line ahead of him before with Steve Parker, and now looks like it'll be the same for him with David. If he can first, of course, negotiate with Grant to get by him.
We'll see what happens. David is not a guy to bow at pressure. So
usually not.
One thing is catching him, and a different one is passing. Well, I must say that Grant Riddle is probably one of the best overtakers in our league. He is likely our Lewis Hamilton, so to speak.
Oh, but he made a mistake coming out of the chicane.
And he's going to pay dearly for that. Because Austin was able to pass him. Like I said, Austin is a real life racer, so he knows playing the waiting game is usually, or at least at this point of the race, what will give you, what will allow you to reap more rewards.
Yep, he definitely reaped the rewards right there. It was just a slight spinning up of the wheels from Grant, but that was enough to lose the drive down the straight.
And if David thought that Grant Riddle being left behind and in a battle with Austin would give him some more breathing room, he is about to find out that that's not the case, because he has already the shadow looming in his mirror.
Indeed, when with a very, very quick driver behind the wheels. Oh, as Grant has Grant has spun off. He's got the engine still
No,
going.
he has to wait. No damage apparently to the car.
I don't think so. He just span off and ran down the perpendicular to the barriers. But unfortunately, that's one position lost for him, and a bit of the battle taken away from us once again.
Against people that usually don't make many errors, which means it will be hard for him to get in touch with them over the race.
Oh, and here comes Austin. He has a bit of a run down the start-finish straight.
David is doing a lot of things that will locking and losing traction there. I don't know if his tires will be very thankful for that towards the end of the race.
Austin is really quick into the head. But then, of course, as we saw earlier, David puts the loud pedal to the metal and flies away. So I'd say Austin needs to make the move maybe at turn 1 or something if he wants to make it stick. And he is moving closer. He is looking for a bit of a run, and he has a run. Here he comes up the inside.
And he got him.
A nice pass. Really neatly done. He saw the previous lap that's where he was quicker than David, and he set it up over the lap and got it done very cleanly. And David didn't argue too much. He I believe him. Sort of let him by.
Very meritory because the straight that was cut short.
Indeed.
He got really the perfect exit from that corner. And it's interesting because I had been watching it on the previous laps, and I would have said that his line out of the corner and the way that he put the McLaren and through it was the quickest around. But no, Austin proved me wrong and showed us that it certainly wasn't the quickest way around, at least not in the shadow, because it's a peculiar car, so maybe it has a more beneficial effect for him following a different line. Because this is the big difference with this car, so that people can follow us, is that the small front wheels are very different to the others. When you have a smaller front wheel, you have certain advantages, like being able to have a lower nose, which is beneficial for aerodynamics. But then in turn, of course, if you have a smaller radius, that means that your wheels will spin more times in the same lap than the other wheels from the other cars do, which in turn means that they will get hotter and that they will get more rolling. It's more tire degradation. So it's likely that the Shadow had always harder compounds in the front that provoked a bit more understeer. This also means that your brakes won't be as big and they won't be as efficient because of the same reasons.
That's a very interesting point. We'll see if it comes back to bite Austin later in the race, because it's still very early days.
Initial nervous stages, it seems that David Sauber has got completely the hand of the McLaren, and he's giving us the David Sauber show because.
Oh dearie me, no! That's a big off for someone. He was about to lap him, and Simon Watman unfortunately is out of the race as well. As is got Urick. Didn't notice when he retired, but he retired a couple of laps ago.
Oh, Christian Dogger just hit the wall. They're making room for David Sauber to overtake.
Well, luckily he's still going, so that's nice to see. And doing his best to not hold up anyone else.
Hello from the junkyard, gentlemen.
Good
Oh,
evening,
hello,
Scott. That's I didn't notice what happened, so if you want, feel free to tell us what happened, mate.
I clipped a wall somewhere along the way just a little bit, and while the cars don't show a lot of damage on the body, the suspension isn't necessarily right. Plus, I didn't have any suspension damage, but the tires were getting rather ragged, and they're hard to hang on to. And with everything else going on today, I just thought it was best to pull off and let everybody have at it.
Oh, of course, your grandmother's 100th birthday.
Yes, thank you.
So, please wish her happy birthday from us in the booth, and I'm sure everyone of HSO.
I would be glad to do that. You will be impressed. With people from all over the world.
Quite so. And another one who would have had his birthday during these days would have been Bob Wilson, who we lost in April last year. So we'd like to wish him a Merry Christmas as well. Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday. Even though he's not with us anymore, I'm sure he's watching us race here today and having a great time watching.
Most definitely. As I said, Barry Lynn is watching and listening, so Barry Lynn, hello. And we still think of Bob.
I hope you're having a good time watching this as well.
And you all know that the coming Indianapolis 500 that will be holding us traditionally in May, there is even an award that we give, and that's the Bob Wilson Award that we give to the guy who has been most helpful and cleanest in his driving during the whole month of May, which is, I think, something that exemplifies very well the traits that Bob had as driver with us. Always helpful, always clean, always fun to be around with him.
And always with many good stories of especially the 73 USAC series and the years around there, where he worked in the pits with the Mongoose team in 75, among other events. And of course was able to give the modders a lot of good insights to the 73 USAC cars.
Well, I can tell you a firm decision I have made after my experience today.
Please go ahead.
I'm going to
get to your 100th birthday.
Well, that yes. But I'm also going to bang on David Saber to make sure I have the setup that he has in his car.
He's definitely flying.
That's a risky thing to do, Scott, because if you pick the setup and you're slower than him, your pride's going to take a bit hit.
Well, I didn't say I would necessarily use it, but
get some ideas maybe.
I was when the driver and car combinations were announced. David and I have always, at least on the ovals, we've always run similar speeds and around each other quite a bit on the track. So I thought, oh, fantastic! I have a good car. I have a teammate with similar tastes in the car and how he likes to run. So I would
say that you were actually decently quick in the car, and more or less in control. I think it's been a bit of maybe eagerness or nervousness on your side in this difficult track, because otherwise I think you were fine. But
I think the car was comfortable, was doing okay. I wasn't pushing it. Just a lot of other things on my mind. But continue my story. I did DM David one night when I saw him on the forum, and I said, "Would you like to get on TeamSpeak and we can discuss the car?" Nope, I don't use any kind of social media. I was like, oh!
Please, can't you use one so that I can get some help?
Exactly.
No, but they will sure be happy to share setups and that. And I can
Oh, I'm
understand
sure
him,
he
I
will.
tell you, because I myself don't have WhatsApp, Facebook, or anything like that.
Well,
I
like,
agree.
well, like everyone here at HSO, I don't think there's anyone I met here who wouldn't share a setup if you ask to get some help with getting the car getting the car to go.
I agree. Friday afternoon, I spent a couple hours anyway on TeamSpeak and on the server with you, Papa, and David Jakes, throwing a couple ideas around. And of course, they had a completely different machine than I did.
So there must have been some kind of error from Austin Ogonowski, because David Jones has been able to close him. Not in position to challenge him, but you see, the best drivers can have some small trouble.
And with 26.5 seconds in the bank, if David's tires were behaving like mine were, may just be easing off of them a little bit. Because as Johnny Ace was saying, as I came in the room, he can always just put the hammer down again.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's sort of looking after his lead at the moment, just taking it easy with each lapping, not really forcing the issue, sort of like you do in the long distance races that you see every now and then.
Putting some 114.
And
His
pulled
quickest
out
laps
another
in
quarter
the
of a
race have
second.
been 113. But he doesn't seem to be slowing too much, which is understandable, because if you slow down too much, you lose concentration and it's easier to have an accident.
Well, that's where the great drivers comes to the front, I'd say, with being able to
Change rhythm.
change the pace they drive at, and not have any issue moving between fast and more careful. Which is why I usually is considered a consistent but bad driver, because I can't switch. I just have one pace and that's it.
Yeah, I also have one speed, that's all. That's it. But it's interesting how the field has spread up, and we are not seeing a lot of action here. There's Martin Lasina catching up with Raul Juret. It's quite interesting. I'm watching Martin with the car, and Martin is also one of the quickest drivers here around, able to do incredible hot laps, but he doesn't seem to be comfortable at all with these big cannon cars. He's having lots of traction problems of understeer, because his front wheel is constantly leaving rubber marks there. So either they are not adapted to his driving, or he didn't find a sweet spot in the setup.
Well, I did notice in the pre-race practice that he wasn't overly happy with the car at that point in time, so so he may still have some work to do with the setup to get it to where he wants it to be.
Well, I
Yeah,
believe
like I said, these cars are very peculiar. I mean, they are rated for understeer supposedly, so that they have big traction. So when you take corners with these cars, you are actually not doing them round, so to speak. What you're doing is braking turning them around once you have fixed all the speed, and then dropping the hammer again so that they go quicker in the driver. So you tend to convert the turns that are rounded into square things, because that's the way you get the most out of the car.
And then it's counterintuitive the way he's used to driving. Another couple things is I believe as Martin chases Raul, I don't believe his car has the same capacity engine that Raul's has. Plus, I also know from the bodywork in the mod, he has no downforce adjustment. He has what he has.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give him credit for running 9th right now because, and while the car doesn't have as much capacity as some of the bigger rides, and I may be wrong as far as Raul goes, I do believe Raul has a bigger motor in the car, but with Martin's smaller engine, it still is a handful on the throttle. So
yeah, this car has lots more power than handling. So
yes, then he's still, but he's still, I mean, 9th place.
Ooh,
is
Peter
fantastic.
Slavak spoon.
Ooh.
Oh dear me. There he is. Oh, and he's off on the grass. Trying to get the car back around again. Oh, he was a little bit on the grass there. So he turns into... Oh, he loses it right as he turns into turn 2. That's one of the...
Also knocked the door off the car.
Oh, he has indeed. Or half the car, half the door, depending on how the doors work in the car.
Yeah, the door's minimal. It's still, as far as the door sill, it stops at the pontoon on the outside. That's still the fuel tank down there, so it doesn't swing out. It just was take a look at the home architecture. Almost like a French, it's almost like a Dutch door where only the top half works.
I was going to say it's like a double kitchen door.
Yes.
I didn't know they were called Dutch doors, but
Well, that's what yeah, you hit it precisely. That's what a Dutch door is called here, or it's what those doors is called here in the States, is a Dutch doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Labatt's having a lot of trouble putting the power down. Sorry to cut you off. But yeah, David is definitely flying. He slapped the top 7 so far by the looks of things. He's just a little bit behind Adam Hackman in 6th, so he slapped 7 up to 7th place so far, which is really impressive. And David Junt is still holding on to Austin Oganowski's rear wing, keeping it within about 1.5 second gap.
Now on the main straight. Interestingly, the David Tower and Oganowski just had a look. They have hit almost the same top speed there in the straight. So it's likely the corners that McLaren is destroying the opposition.
Yes.
Which is somewhat surprising, because I'd expect the Shadow to be a little bit quicker in the corners and then the McLaren to be pulling away in the
No, like I
straights.
said, the Shadow is Jason White. That's quick. He's left the game. Probably an accident?
Oh no.
Suspension,
Yeah, it looks like suspension damage, so...
like I said, no, the Shadow was theoretically rigged to be an aerodynamic car. Very quick in straight line. well, he's doing the same top speed as the M8F, so you can say that in that regard it's doing the job. But
Oh,
not
no.
necessarily as efficient in corners.
It looks like, oh no! I'm looking back at Jason White's replay, and he jumped the fence, was outside the track.
Oh, that's a pretty big chunk.
Oh. That's really unfortunate. He was having a good race. He was sitting inside the top 50.
In the process of driving around outside the fence, he fell into one of the open holes in the map and fell to oblivion.
Oh. Well, that's something they sort of have to do with the tracks, because you want to keep down the
Legends track. Like I said, it's a converted Grand Prix Legends track, and in Grand Prix Legends, for whatever reason, the track always ended just some 100 yards beyond the racetrack itself.
Well, and that's a place that they don't really have to consider because it's outside of turn 4.
Oh, Bruno Chacon is there in the grass.
User disconnected from your channel.
Oh, and
Uh-oh.
oh, just about gets out. Oh, and out of the way of Austin Oganowski as well, backs it into the wall to get purely out of the way.
Oh, thanks. We can have the situation as the other.
Oh, that's a good. That was a good decision from Bruno there, backing it, not really taking too much consideration of his own car, just getting out of the way of everyone else so that they can get going without too much incident, and also waiting for everyone to get by before he joins the track. Really neat job by Bruno here. Oh no!
Grant just creamed him.
Oh.
Had a flat left rear tire and was trying to get back to the pits. Yep.
Yeah.
And Grant came screaming up through there.
Well, I say that wasn't Bruno's fault entirely, because he was at the side of the road, but sadly on the racing side of the track, and
Well, I think Bruno was keeping it.
And with the crest right there, he just couldn't see that he was there.
That's one of those dilemmas you face as a driver, especially at a track like this.
I mean, you can see on the yeah, and you can see on the replay here. You can see that he can see Bruno's car right at the top of the crest, but he can't really read how quick he's going. So when he comes over the crest, that's just more or less a stationary car. And because of how the crest is, he leaves the road a little bit, so he loses grip with the road and he has no time to avoid contact.
That's precisely right, and as I was saying, that's the dilemma as a driver. As you come up on something and you see the yellow flag pop up, how much do you lift? How much do you stay in it?
And where exactly is the car that brings out the yellow?
Yes. When David Sabers shot and whoever else was involved with him, I came through their top speed and I got lucky because I could split the center and just both cars. But at the same time, and they had all but one width of the track or one lane of the track blocked, and I got lucky. It was completely lucky with that. And Grant just, yeah, I agree with you. Grant got caught out. A yellow flag, you assume the guy is in the grass over by the guardrail, but as you crest a hill and that big red mark just sitting there, there's really nothing to be done at that point.
definitely true. And I feel sorry for both of them because both were having good races up to that point.
Bruno is. That's what I noticed when I came in for tires. It takes 2 minutes 5 seconds to get a tire change.
Oh god. That's a good 2 laps lost.
Yes.
More or less.
And if Bruno is having damage done,
it'll be longer
my
still.
minor damage was 95 seconds, so I should have stuck around for reference to see if it was additive or consecutive. Or, I mean, consecutive or concurrent.
Bruno Chacon's now down to the last run.
But he's usually quite steady, and that's how he got the podium in with the difficult 37 cars. So even if he's right now at the very last, I would expect to see him at the finish of the race.
That's correct, and if he still has, Grant Riddell is still 4 laps ahead of him. Does 4 laps, he gains 1 position. I'm sure we'll have other attrition as the race goes on.
Oh, and we have another one with a puncture, I think, number 16. Sorry to cut you off. That's a light blue. That's Jan Tits crabbing. So I think that's either massive suspension damage or a puncture. I can't see on the replay what happened to him, but he's in a real heap of trouble here. Ooh, just trying to hold on.
Down to the last corners. Hang on.
I think. Oh, come on. Oh, I think Jan will be
suspension because I don't see any flat tire there. Oh, he got it. The pits.
Good job on holding on to that car at all. I think he'll need a new set of underwear. And if not him, then the car that passed him in the second to last turn.
Yes, Yuha. That was Yuha.
Oh dear me, yeah. He's probably thanking his lucky star.
To the pit, so he lives to fight another several laps.
And slowly but surely, Austin Ivanovsky is denting on David Saberslade, who's now 20 seconds away. From laps it was 28. It went up to 32 at some point. But now Austin has gone racing. Like I said, he is obviously a very veteran racer. Sim racer in real life already racing. And he knows very well how not to get involved in stupid things, as much as he can avoid it at the beginning of the race. Wait for his moment when the track clears, and that moment seems to have come.
Oh, Peter Labatt.
Now pushing on it.
Peter Labatt is out of the race after a massive crash in turn 2. By the looks of things, he lost it on the crest on the entry and made heavy contact with the outside barriers. Unfortunately, that's the end of his race. He was having a good run.
Oh, we just had the nasty, little much of a lift. When she stepped out, he tried to correct, and she snapped back the other way.
I'm sorry to have cut you off there, Alberto.
No, I have finished. No problem.
Oh, good to hear. And yeah, of course, real life racing gives you experience, and it helps, as you say, a lot with all kinds of racing. And
well, in the case of Austin, it's been the opposite way, because he started sim racing, and then he got involved into local racing in his local track at Canada, and in the end he got well, let's say a more pro car, because he's now driving one of those late models.
Ooh.
And that's a pretty serious car already, driving on short tracks, 3/4 of a mile and things like that. Half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. And that's, well, already some dangerous driving, because surrounded by walls and with powerful cars.
Yes, and along with that, those are big block engines, much like he's running in here. So there's his experience right there.
Yeah, the good thing is that having someone who is proficient in sim racing and is also doing real life racing helps a lot, knowing what is realistic and not in the cars, instead of giving our best guess opinions in that regard.
Yes.
It's definitely. That's true indeed.
Had a guy I used to work or race with several years ago who he would get in one of the exotic cars, historic cars, whatever car it was. It could be a monster truck, it could be a Labatt truck, and he would always just scream that, "Oh, these physics aren't right, and this isn't right, and that isn't right." My comment was, "Well, I didn't realize you ever tested a 917 at the Mons to know whether it feels right in the game or not."
Yeah, but sometimes when you talk with drivers who have driven the real things in life, of course it doesn't always translate correctly. It's not always easy to reflect that. There's cars that, for example, are not hard to drive, but they are very tiring to drive. If you pick one of the Group C's from the 80s, some of them were actually quite decent cars. They were customer cars, for example, the 956, 962, the successive Porsches. They were not intended to be hard to drive itself, but what made them hard to drive is the G-forces that you were exposed to. It's not that the handling was evil or something that was trying to kill you when you least expect it, as Jeremy Clarkson said of the road-going 911. But it sure is demanding, very tiring physically to drive it. We have been lucky enough here to have been able to contact with some real races when we did, for example, when we did the USAC mod, USAC 73 mod, and the upcoming 71, we had Jason White was able to speak with no other than Gary Devin Person. He taped the 2 interviews with him, and he gave us very good insight into what it meant to drive one of those cars back then.
That's fantastic.
And interestingly, it wasn't as you would expect. Everybody thinks, oh, that's the 70s, then you must go sideways, so we'll take flip angles and all that. And Gary basically told us that, yeah, you could probably steer the thing and that, but it was basically on rails. And if you went out of those rails, and you were heading for a wall. So.
Yes, precisely. Yes,
you
that mod
certainly needed big balls to
much like this one. The first time, my first experience with HSO was when I saw the 73 cars, and that literally is and at Indianapolis, the first year you guys ran that as a one-off. And I told all my friends, you need to get this, because that is the first mod I had driven in any title racing game or simulation. It scared me to death.
I think it scared a lot of us, at least half to death.
Yes, it was like so many of the wrecks we'd seen in Indianapolis, and just like that last wreck we saw, the tail would step out, and then all of a sudden it would snap oversteer directly into the outside wall, so you were... And I actually get into the immersion, and when I hit the wall, I scream.
Woke up the whole household.
Yes.
I'd assume.
One funny thing that people have to me about the mod is, that was the exact description, I mean, with 1,000 horsepower there, people said they were scared. I mean, that's the first thing, the first time ever that they've driven a mod that was scary to drive. You felt scared in the car, which was funny because I guess then, I don't know how well achieved the physics were, but the feeling of driving the cars was probably then well achieved because you were scared.
Yes, the immersion was immense. That goes with the, I mean, part of that, the sound of the models, the same with this. Like I posted in the forum, you know how to go faster in these cars? Is turn the sound way up. When it's shaking your bones, then you know that you have something inside you that's or behind you that's trying to kill you.
So the viewers were probably already concluded from our bubble chat. So there's not a lot of action in the track right now. All the field is very much, and there are no bubbles on track, which is quite interesting considering that well, this is a rather short track. You would expect people to be more grouped together, but no. Sometimes things turn out the opposite as you would expect them.
Ooh, but there are lappings going on, and that was a bit of a close call between Hackman and Jan Tits. Hackman didn't quite want to attack the corner like he would do because he was on the inside there.
Suspension damage.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was in the 10, but probably the car has got him.
Unfortunately, I can't get that on the replay, but unfortunately, Ray Rydal is out of the race, and that promotes Mikael Drexler up into 10th. So he'll be happy with being in the top 10 after dropping to more or less the back of the field early on.
Well, then Ashura, meanwhile, is doing a discreet race, but with a meritorious 8th place, avoiding trouble and not getting involved in big problems. And well, with the attrition rate of the race, it should pay off at the end. It will surprise me much to see her later in the top 5.
Filippo Marazzi is upside down coming out of the chicane, and it looks like he's slowly but surely sliding into the abyss.
Well, at this
maybe
rate,
not.
I don't think that he will be able to reach the pits.
No, I don't think. And since the car's still moving, he can't escape. It's slowly sliding down the grass.
He's trying to blow the engine, maybe, no? Well, it's a long way down that hill.
Well, at least he's not on the racing line, I don't think.
Oh, unless somebody gets a little squirrel.
And I think those marshals there, in the place there, are going to get fired because they are not even showing a local yellow.
Well, he's not in that in their sector yet, so.
Oh my god.
Oh, he's drifting onto the track.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll work out okay.
Oh man, this is really a problem. It's going to block the track. You should blow him. That would be the easiest way. Now.
Ah, he finally got to escape.
I think he was clenching quite a bit in there, waiting to be able to escape out. To be perfectly honest. Because that's not a nice feeling, not being able to get out when you know you can cause a lot of trouble.
And he possibly was waiting to see if, you know, a lot of mods, once you sit upside down for a few seconds, it'll flip it back over, but not in here.
True enough, but I do believe he was more waiting and not being able to flip her right,
Yes,
as I believe Brian Yannick is heading into the pits. And we're already 3/4 of the way in now, I assume. Yeah, more or less 3/4 of the way in.
Austin is now under 20 seconds gap from David.
Well, he's definitely closing in, but will he be able to close in enough?
At some point he has been 20 seconds and now he's 19. First time we noticed that he was racing, he was 20 seconds away from David. But since it also depends on lap cars that you find and... Jan was there having his trouble himself recovering from overtaking Chris and Edward, and that almost went very bad.
I think they...
Very, very aggressive pass.
Yeah, between Tits and Boss it's for position, I think. Ah no, because Tits is 2 laps down on Boss. There are Rion in between them.
We're not going to take that out of context either.
Well, I think all of them will have drawn their... Oh, yes, they're still side by side.
So you see now the difference is up 21 seconds again between Austin and David Sauber.
It fluctuates with the
That's
traffic,
likely
but
because of Austin being slowed down.
when Jan being really aggressive, and he finally gets his way through. Oh, I wonder did that damage his car there? Looked very
Oh, I
squirrely.
must say this, since we're looking at Jan and Juha. Working Friday with,
Oh no!
that was Junt!
Happened there.
I believe Juha Boss may have caught some damage because there were contact between Tits and him when Tits went through.
Oh, David Junt is missing a wheel now.
Oh yeah, well he hit Juha hard.
Yeah, but
See.
it was when he was caught by Jason Whited later.
Yeah, Juha was already struggling with suspension damage, so his suspension was broken when Tits went through. There were another driver involved that also made contact with. We're seeing Jason Whited got involved as well because he was too close behind, and that's where Junt actually lost his wheel.
Yeah, he's now struggling, but now finally entering the pits. And
Oh, wasn't
still in
Jason
fourth
White? He's been
position.
out of the race for
If he has
several
one
laps.
lap of advantage over some people and 2 laps over the next, I don't know, if the repairs are quick enough, he could get away with that and not losing a lot of time. I mean, maybe someone just recovers the lap.
Oh, and Juha missed his pit box. He's going to have to limp it around again.
Oh, and Brian Yannick is out of the race as well in the meantime. But yeah, that's unfortunate for you, huh? And that must have been
I
a
will
slight.
say-
That must have been just a slight contact between him and Tits that broke the rear suspension. That's incredible.
And right now, only the podium in the lead lap.
Well, I promised Juha I would say this because on Friday with him was.
Ooh!
Ooh. But based on his big.
And more contact. And that was the leader, but that's just the speed difference with a damaged car and a non-damaged
Yes.
car.
But based on his big concern Friday with the car, I don't care how bad that car is damaged, he will have the perfect tire temperatures and pressures. So he gets the award for being the best friend of the Goodyear representative.
I don't think
Car
he's...
couldn't stay on the track.
With you,
He had
just
to-
cost 2 seconds.
He had to find 0.2 of a pound of air pressure in every tire, so.
When he's being a lot more careful this time around. And he makes it into the pit stall.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, that's a lot of unfortunate situations right there. But this means both our newcomers of Ster and Dauger is inside the top 15 right now. Which is really nice to see.
Yes,
Although many laps down, but still running and inside the top 15.
And I should say also looking much better, getting confidence with the car in fielder.
Indeed.
Well, gentlemen, I'll still be watching, but I'm going to go get my shirt changed and go see what kind of inferno 100 candles make.
Yep. Enjoy yourself and again have a
wishes
have a
to your
good
grandmother.
one and give our best wishes to your grandmother.
I will do both. Thank you, sirs. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Definitely. And to make Jason White a little bit happier, because he set up some questions, but I've been having so much fun talking with you and Scott that I completely forgot about it. But let's bring up the question now that should hopefully be a little bit of a calm time, and we'll bring it up after the race, I think. But the question is, who won the first Mosport Can-Am race on September 24th, 1966? Was it A. Mark Donoghue, B. Bruce McLaren, or C. Phil Hill?
Phil Hill.
I did get it wrong, but C is your answer, and we'll see after the race.
I was just asking who
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah,
But
it was
it
Phil
sounds
Hill.
logical that it could have been Phil Hill. Because I think Bruce McLaren entered later. The Can-Am started being a local affair, Canadian-American series as the name goes, and then it started attracting big names. So my guess is that Bruce McLaren, coming from the other side of the world where they are upside down, he would only have arrived later.
That's a very good deduction, and we'll see if it's right after the race. But for now, back to the action on track, and Sabre is getting held up here with no fault of Christian Dauger though, but it's just one of those things with certain parts of this track where you just can't get by the car in front.
The David Gant after repairs is just in the top 10. He's 4 laps down. He's lost a lot of ground, but unfortunately he's not in the same lap as the next classified, who is Michael Wechsler, who just passed Matthias Weber, by the way. They're battling it, and it seems that Wechsler has got the best part.
And at least at this very moment. I wouldn't put it past Weber to give it a go.
He doesn't have any clear objective to race against. He's leaving a lot of rubber marks there. I would guess that the repairs have not been complete. This car is on the steering badly. So, Ogonoski 17 seconds away from David's cover. Let's see lap times. He's been doing very steady 1:15. ever lower. Well, in the case of David Saber, that's been 1:16 in these 2 last laps. He ventures into the 1:14, but much more irregular. Probably that's when he gets caught up in traffic. But still, Austin is either in a part of the track where he's not meeting as much speed or simply going quicker. I must say, I don't think that even if Austin was able to catch David, it would be easy for him to overtake, because McLaren is such a superior car that I can't imagine any place where the Shadow could put a fight against it. So other than putting pressure, Austin is a bit limited in what he can do with that car. Though it's certainly impressive what he's extracting out of it.
According to what other drivers were saying during testing ahead of the season, two guys are off. The Shadow would seem to have been a very, very quick car, but also very, very leery, very difficult to drive.
Yeah, that's what it was in real life also. It was explained of those small front tires in the design decision. Anyway, with the problems for David John, we have now Jason Whited in a very, very meritorious.
Oh, we have another one upside
place.
down. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, is that?
It's not Dauger, is it?
Who's upside down?
Can't actually see for sure. He was upside down. It looks like he's now out of the race. I'm just trying to find who it would have been. Number 13, I'd assume. Possibly. Yeah. Oh yes, it is. Oh, it is Christian Dauger. Oh, what a unfortunate way to end the race. Got a little bit loose, putting that power on coming out of the hairpin, and the car snapped back when he tried to correct the slide, and up
Like
onto the banking he went.
Like your debut.
But I believe he'll still be classified, so he should finish in 16th place as a classified finisher.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately no points, but a very, very good showing overall.
So Adam Hackman has been able to catch up with Jason Whited, and it seems that we will be having a fight for 4th place.
This will be interesting to watch. I believe this green machine is a BRM, isn't it?
No, I think both are on McLaren's M8. I'll confirm you in a moment.
It looks like the cars are a little bit different, but I'll let you...
I'll go to the entry list and I'll let you know in a moment.
Yep. This will be an interesting fight towards the end of the race. It looks like this is by far the closest pair on track now.
On a McLaren M8D model. And where is it? Here, in a McLaren M8E. So the difference are minimal. They both have the same engine.
Okie dokie. So this is as close as a fair fight that we'll see in the series.
Well, the series has become legendary because of the power of the cars and the sound and all that, but the real story is that it wasn't a lot of competition. There was always one team that dominated it. McLaren did it for several years. First it started with Lola, then McLaren for several years. And then it was Porsche who completely killed whatever interest there was in the series.
That's usually what
So 15
happens.
seconds. 15 seconds now between David Saber and Austin Ogonowski with 10 laps to go.
Or it could still become close then.
Not enough to catch him, but any error from David Saber can have big consequences for him.
Indeed, and as we saw in the Kart 88 series, race 2, round 2 at Long Beach, it was decided on the last lap from his tiniest mistake.
No, I was talking about the quality of Martin Lassina as a driver, and despite all the understeer and all the rubber marks he's leaving there with that car that he's struggling with, there you got it. He's in 6th place. With some steady driving, he's been doing that.
That's a very good showing, especially since he isn't happy with how the car is handling, as you say, and a good haul of points. I believe that will mean 6 points for him to open up the year if it finishes like it is right now. And a driver who had trouble earlier, Bruno Chacon, with that puncture about halfway into the race, is still running, and I believe he will finish inside the top 15. He is now 15th, so that's a decent recovery for him.
Yeah, I told you. You can expect always him to be there at the end.
You did indeed.
He has now 59 laps. I don't know if there's a minimum percentage.
Oh, your boss is out of the race.
Yeah, with the ill-handling car after all these accidents, it was something that wasn't hard to be expected.
Yeah, he had a bit of a loose moment in turn, I believe that's turn 3, and the car just snapped on him. Oh, and a really good avoidance from Gerard Rion right there, avoiding Juha Bose's car. And as you say, just under 16 seconds now between the top two. And of course it's still fairly close between Hackman and Whited as well.
Yeah, but it seems he isn't able to catch Jason Whited. Not sure what he is losing, but one and Jason Whited is doing 114 in most laps, but there's the eventual lap that he does 116. And that's probably what allows Hackman to currently face.
Oh, no, Whited is off, Whited is in. Oh, he's hit barriers as well.
He just touched outside the track. He touched the grass and there he went.
We had
like
a little
I was
bit
saying at the beginning of the broadcast, sliding these cars and calculating well where you will end is difficult. He entered too late in the corner, and when he did his usual slide, the car was touching the grass with the exterior wheel, and that's it. That's enough to send you speed.
And that's really unfortunate. I believe he got distracted a little bit with his exit off the final corner, and that's why he may have been thinking about that a little bit when he entered turn 1. And that brings Adam Hackman up into a podium finish. Oh no. Wait, what? Oh, Adam Hackman looks to have had... Oh,
Hackman is scored now, it's 1 lap down.
Oh, there's a full lap between them.
Strange.
There must be a full lap between them, and that's surprising. Yeah, there's a full lap between them, I didn't realize that. I thought they were on the same lap.
I guess maybe it's a bug. We'll have to look at that later.
Yeah. Well, for now, it's Whited third, happen fourth, but as Alberto says, we'll have a look after the race in case there are any irregularities in terms of the scoring.
A special mention must go today for Åcerclinth, who is there in a very, very meritorious 5th place.
That's definitely true, and he had a bit of trouble early on in the race as well, I seem to remember. I believe he was involved in the incident that took Yves Placé out initially. And he, in the pre-practice, showed some very good speed in these cars, so taking 8 points if he finishes 5th will be a good start to his campaign as well, and anything is possible.
Martin Lasina is back into the track in front of the leader, but he seems to have spun out. He was making room, but David played it safe and is waiting, and is passing there safely. Rocketing Kasim more than passing.
That's the car difference, very apparent right there.
Well, obviously also Martin held on the throttle to let David pass.
Yes, of course, but the difference will still seem to be a lot bigger than it seemed. Never mind. My English ain't working right now.
Obviously much more powerful. But don't forget that when coming from very slow speeds, you have to get the power down. So that means that if you have lots of power, it could very well happen that a less powerful car is actually quicker than you in the first yard. Because you don't have, it's hard for you to get the traction that you need to put all the power down. We've seen that many times with powerful cars. So, yeah, then of course if it rises, then you will in the end always overtake the other guy. But in those starting initial yards, it's always going to be a problem for the guy who has more power. He has to be very, very careful with it.
Very true, and nowhere is that more apparent, I feel like, than in the Touring Car Legends model, where you have so many different manufacturer cars and engine powers, and there you can really see the difference between, let's say, the BMW M3 and the Holden Commodore. In terms of that, in terms of those early versus late down the straight.
We'll also be able to see all of that in the Formula 1 series that will be staying very soon here at HSO. Because we're giving the finishing touches to the Automobilista version of it, which is the one that we will be using. Because the features that it has are really too good to miss. And we will have the factory cars, private cars, and an era when the Formula 1 was all about different design decisions. So we will have the 12-cylinder boxer engine in the Ferraris, the 12-cylinder in the Alfa Romeos that was sometimes equipped in the March story car. Sometimes they were with the Cosworth. And we will see many different things, including even the turbine car, the famous Lotus turbine car, will be used at some rounds by whoever lands a Lotus ride.
That'll be awesome to watch.
I suspect that I will see you driving there. I'm really sure, because I've been beta testing it. It's been one of my contributions to the mod, because as you all know, it's mainly Ricardo Will's work. And I must say that I'm absolutely delighted and impressed with the cars, because I can only say that people who like Grand Prix Legends will absolutely love this mod. It's certainly the same feel when driving, only that, in my opinion at least, it's even much more realistic and believable than Grand Prix Legends. Probably just because it's obviously done in a more evolved engine. Grand Prix Legends was a fantastic game, but with the limitations of 1998. Still a great game today, but if someone can extract the potential of games that are more evolved, that have more features, then obviously are always going to have a winner there, and that's our case with Ricardo and the Formula 171. if there has been a lot of demand and it's very, very tight to get a ride in the Can-Am series, well, wait and see what happens with the Formula One.
Yeah, my hope is to get a drive in that series, but we'll see. First and foremost, I need to like the cars before I sign up. But David Saber heads on to the final lap of the race. Right here.
Yes, sir. 60 seconds lead, doing well. The David Saber show.
Yeah, he's definitely put on a clinical drive here.
Race. Well, David is a quick driver. There's no question about it. Only luck or constance, or how you call it, has not been on his side to get better results. So the rationale behind him being able to drive this powerful factory McLaren was that. And I guess if the trend continues as it has been in previous seasons, maybe it's to even out things itself. He is more unlucky on other tracks, but when he is on top of his game, as you can see, he is mastering the McLaren. The initial errors in the first laps are absolutely a thing of the past, and he's now driving beautifully, very steadily, and without any kind of errors. Very well concentrated on what he's doing.
Indeed, I see. Ooh! Last bit of sliding going on in the last SS, but here he comes towards the start-finish line, and he crosses the line to take the win here tonight. Fantastic drive. Awesome job. And heading up towards the second place finish is Austin Ogonowski, going through the last turn now. Crosses the line, finish second. And third, preliminarily, will be Jason Whited. And he still has Adam Hackman for close company behind him. But preliminarily,
nobody right now really under pressure, so rather taking it easy to finish this very, very hard race.
Yeah, and there he goes across the finish line to finish third. Adam Hackman finishes fourth. Raul Yerev with a very nice, very nice fifth place there. Martin Lassina, of course, with a very nice sixth place after being a bit unhappy with this setup. Dana Schurer, a quiet and seemingly uneventful drive to 7th for a good start to the year. Mikael Drexler finishes 8th even after his early antics in the hairpin. Matthias Weber gets 9th, and rounding out the top 10, having been as high as 2nd for a long time of the race, fortunately being involved in incidents, David Junt. Gerard Rion also involved in incidents, finishes 11th. Jan Titz with a pretty incident-filled race, unfortunately. A few mistakes and others being a bit optimistic maybe. Finishes 12th. Gabriel Sturr has a very nice debut here at HSO, finishes 13th. And Bruno Chacon with a good recovery drive finishes 14th and last of our runners.
So Haster has now a very nice 100% finishing rate as HSO.
Indeed. And I'll just quietly let you read the names of the rest of the drivers so that you will have a chance to find your favorite drivers in the finishing list. But yeah, that was a very interesting race and a very fun one to watch. And also, before we are joined by potential interviewees, we'll have a look at the trivia question and answer. So the question once again was, who won the first Mosport Can-Am race on September 24th, 1966? Was it A. Mark Donoghue, B. Bruce McLaren, or C. Phil Hill? And I believe, Alberto, you had Bruce McLaren down as your answer, did you?
No, I said Phil Hill. I said that
Oh, sorry.
McLaren, I thought, must have come later in the series. That was my reasoning, because I have absolutely no idea. It was an educated guess.
That's a fair call. And the correct answer is A. Mark Donoghue.
Was it Donahue? Really?
Yeah.
I would have thought he came the latest.
Apparently not. He was possibly the first of them. Or maybe that was his first year in the series even. I honestly don't know.
No, in my case it's even worse, because I read it, his autobiography, The Unfair Advantage.
Maybe he didn't mention that he won that series.
Yeah. I seem to have fish memory.
Well, you're not alone in if that's the case. I usually forget a lot of things. Usually, or most normally names. But yeah, very fun first event of the year, I must say. Good stuff to watch, and some really good racing. Let's see, it doesn't look like we have anyone coming in to chat with us, so maybe some final thoughts on the series and the race in general before we finish off the broadcast.
The series has started as fast and furious as we expected. I think it will be a really nice series to follow. So let's see what happens when people are they come more into terms with the cars, they have more practice, because I would expect them to be much more competitive in the next races. Also because, like we said, this was a very small track, these cars.
It was indeed, and we did see quite a few incidents, but as you say, wider tracks. I mean, Sebring, for example, will surely open up for a very better race for everyone, with the track being a lot wider and allowing for a bit more side-by-side action without having to risk undulation and that kind of stuff causing incidents.
So we'll see.
Yep.
It's going to be a long season. Not in terms of number of races, but the races are spread all over the year. And, well, the variety of circuits, there is a schedule for everyone to see in the website. And we'll see for sure some fantastic action in some of the tracks. So that's from me for today. Thanks, Jonatan, for the broadcast. It was always a pleasure to meet you here in the booth. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you for joining me. It's an honor to have you along with me. Your knowledge of the series and the mod is invaluable for us in the broadcast, and your general racing knowledge is even better than that. So, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And with that, we'll be signing off. I'd like to point out that the next race in this series will take place on January the 28th, so 5 weeks from now. And it'll be the Can-Am Saint-Jovite event at the Mont-Tremblant circuit in Canada, which will be a very interesting race, I'd say. A track, if I remember correctly, that has quite a bit of undulation as well, but a few more possibilities for passing and racing side by side. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a good time until we talk next. But until then, take care and good night.